Hey guys, we're going to be testing out watercolors today, and I want you to have on hand before you get started these supplies. Your watercolor palette, paper towel, pencil, ruler, protractor if you have it, although you don't need it, watercolor paper, brushes, and 2 cups of water. Remember, we need 2 cups of water because one is going to be and serve as our dirty water where we rinse out our brush, and the other one's going to be our reservoir where we go to get fresh water. As we start to measure out our grid, you can do this any way you want to and test your materials. I just like the precision of making a grid and even practicing measuring, so that's why I usually do this. Each one of these grid squares is 2 centimeters square, and you see I'm just marking out lines. And the first thing I did was actually count the number of slots and swatches I need to make, and I have 12 colors here. You may have more, you may have less. I'm gonna skip white, so I don't need to test out that color on white paper. But the other thing that I want to do is, while I'm testing out these colors, is to make sure that I'm using plenty of water. Now, what is plenty of water? Well, we don't want to use so little water that our caked watercolor, is too thick. And you notice that first color that I laid down, that kind of ochre yellow I laid down, you can kind of see both thick and thin areas. And that's what we want, because watercolors are diluted by water. Water is their solvent. And so we need to whenever we test, we need to test them out and see, well, what do thick areas look like? What do thin areas look like? And again, these are kind of small swatches to paint. If you want to do a bigger area to test, you can most certainly do that. But that's what we're after. Enough water on your brush and maybe a good saturation on your brush so that you can see thick and thin areas. If this watercolor was too thick, we'd see almost a very thick, viscous, rather than very fluid and watery type of color. It would resemble more like paste that you would put on and find. So make sure you add in plenty of water and test those out. And of course, just by doing so, you're practicing and learning how to use watercolor, and you're gonna figure out pretty fast what is thick and what is thin. So let's do that and let's see how it looks. For those of you with a larger source of watercolors, you may have 21 colors or 18 colors to pick from, and you test those out. This process is going to be a little bit more difficult because our goal here is to try to find 2 pairs of primary colors. So you can see me testing out the yellows at the bottom, and it's kind of cut off on the screen, but it doesn't really matter because you'll get to see the others as I test them. But right now I'm testing out the 2 yellows that I have in my kit. Now again, if you have a larger kit or if you have watercolors at home, those 2 primaries that you're picking will be a lot harder because you'll be guessing on, okay, well, maybe I'll have 4 yellows to pick from, and which ones do I choose? It would really benefit you to watch videos on color temperature, and I've included those in your assignments and regarding color bias, because each primary that we want to try to use in our color wheel need to be of a cool temperature and a warm temperature. So right now I just did those 2 blues right there, and the one on bottom, I consider a cool a cool blue, and in contrast, the one on top is a warm blue. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, the warmer blue has a tiny bit of yellow in it. That's a tiny bit of yellow in it, so it's edging towards green. And the bottom blue has a tiny bit of violet in it, and it's biased towards violet. Okay, and the same thing's happening with our reds here. We have a red on top that is edging towards orange or even yellow, so that's going to be my warm red. And then our red on bottom has a little bit of violet in it, and it's even edging towards magenta or violet, so it's biased towards those. And now that we've picked those out, we are setting ourselves up to do our color wheel. Now I'm just going to label these really quickly, both warm and cool. There's something interesting about these two yellows though. These two yellows are the only ones in this 12 color set, and I consider both of those in the warm range. That is, I've seen enough colors in my life and seen a lot of yellows in my life to know that both of those yellows are edging towards the warmer yellows, right? So they have some orange in them or red in them, just a tiny bit. And but in our color wheel, since they're only the two yellows we have to use them both. And we'll see what kind of effect they have by choosing both of those warm yellows. But you may have warm and cool yellows in your larger kits, and that is fine. Our other goal is this, and this is important to note, is that a lot of you, because you may be new to art, or maybe you're familiar with art but not good with color, and viewing and seeing differences in color temperature, you may not know what a cool yellow looks like or what a warm yellow looks like. The good way to tell is by comparing it to other yellows or other blues. And what artists do is that they actually paint these swatches close together and compare them. Well, does this look cooler or warmer than another blue, or does this look cooler or warmer next to another yellow? And it's this kind of experimentation that leads us to determine that. So just keep experimenting and picking your colors, and of course having fun while doing it. All right guys, we'll see you next time.